Hello, Hong Kong. Thanks for hanging around. I will try to deliver. So one thing I've been thinking a lot about as I've been spending time walking the conference hall and spending the day today in Hong Kong is just the diversity in the audience of where we come from, what we're trying to achieve. And I gave a lot of thought to, what do I really want to deliver in this keynote? How do I bring value? I think one of the things that, when I think about products or services, and definitely when I speak or create content, how do you bring value? Like, what's the trade here? I'm getting your attention, I want to bring you value in return. And the thing that really stands out for me is the one thing that I'm confident in, the one thing that I'm absolutely confident in is what attaches all of us. What is the one common theme, whether you're a startup, whether you're a professional, whether you're a student, solo entrepreneur, large company, starting tomorrow? What is the one thing that guarantees a connection point that we can all agree on and get value out of the framework that I create here? And I think that comes down to one simple thing, that no matter what you're doing in this room, whether you're trying to raise money for a nonprofit, or you're trying to sell a fintech product, or trying to raise capital for what you're trying to achieve, the one thing that we all trade on in this room is attention. If you are not sitting and debating on an everyday basis on how you, as a human or as a company, act like a modern day media publisher, how you communicate, whether in written, audio, or video form, and then which platforms are underpriced and overpriced, you are basically missing the punchline. It doesn't matter how good, bad, or indifferent your product or service is. If nobody knows about it, you are vulnerable. And the thing that I'm curious about is where everybody in this room is on their life cycle. Because if you've had success for 3 or 4 years, you might have fallen in love with what got you here. The biggest concern I have, and I see some heads nodding already, is what got you here today is always the thing that's not going to get you to tomorrow. For example, for me, if you asked me today, what am I most paying attention to? Where do I see the next arbitrage? It's absolutely around audio. I'm obsessed with what's going in the US market, not only around podcasts, and this is global, but especially around what's going on with Alexa from Amazon, Google Home, and the future Apple HomePod. The one thing I promise you is that every single person here, besides the health and well-being of their family and money, values time. And time is emerging very quickly. If you take a look, and this is extremely prevalent through the Asian market, European market, South American market, US market, time's value is exceeding on an everyday basis. As we become more busy, we start valuing time tremendously, tremendously. That is what Uber and other transportation apps have traded on. It's saving you time. Even the perception of time is a good business model. But the thing that I think I'm very fascinated by is how much sound and audio will be selling back to you time founded that you used to not have. When you watch a video, which I think we can all agree, video content is scaling in importance and is absolutely in the prime of its medium right now. When you're looking at video, it is taking up your time. Audio is incredibly passive. And so the thing that I'm trying to force down energy-wise in this keynote is the following. Number one, no matter what you do for a living, you need to think of yourself as a media company, your company. If you are a SaaS tech, you are a media company, comma, SaaS tech. If you are a consumer social network, you are a media company, comma, social network. If you're a human being, you are a media company, comma, human being. When you wrap your head around that, you start understanding what you should be doing, which is, in your natural way, producing stories for people to consume to bring awareness to what you do. So one, if you are not taking this opportunity for what it is, you've already put yourself in second place. This is the moment. Number two, entrepreneurship got popular, and that means it's dangerous. Because there's a lot of people that raise their hands that have entrepreneurial tendencies and aren't necessarily entrepreneurs. Just because you say you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you're a successful entrepreneur. And the reason I bring that up is not to be like, I'm cool, you're not, or anything of that nature. There's just one very important thing that is not being discussed enough. We talk about working smart and having the right strategy and having the right product. I'm stunned by how much pushback there is when I talk about working hard. There is zero people you know that have built a successful business without working their face off. There are people that have inherited money. There are people that have had that dynamic, but you know nobody, nor does the world, that has started from zero and built something substantial that hasn't put in a disproportional amount of work to get there. It is the one utterly controllable aspect of our game, and if you really want this, please really start thinking about maximizing every minute. That doesn't mean neglecting your family. That doesn't mean neglecting your health, but I am stunned as somebody who's spending an enormous amount of time in this ecosystem by how many people have the ambition and their mouth is running to what they're going to accomplish and their actions don't map to it at all.
Hope everybody's ready for this session because I am. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great.
Hello, Hong Kong. Hello, Hong Kong.
So basically we're talking about, you know, when you have fears, you just don't give a shit about it. Just go for it.
Listen, I'm petrified of my mother's health. Like petrified. So I have fear. I just think life's about alternatives. Life's like, I don't give a shit when people talk to me about theory. It's just binary. Like when your spouse gets terminally ill, theory doesn't matter. You have to navigate. When you lose your biggest client that represents, how many people here have businesses that have very large clients that represent big portions of their business? Raise your hand. How many people here have a client that represents more than 50% of their business? Raise your hand. I mean, that's fucking scary for these 11 people. Like, their businesses suck. Like, they need to, like, one more time for the 11 of you, I want to give you a piece of advice. You need to, like, tomorrow, like, you should leave this talk right now, leave, and start getting other customers, because that's scary. Like, who wants to be that vulnerable to something that they don't control? You know, so for me, like, there's just things that you can't control. If the 11 of them lose that client tomorrow because the decision maker that is their client goes to a different company and the new one doesn't like them, or has a sister that has a similar business, they're in panic mode. They've got to adjust. And so, you know how many people here's businesses rely on somebody that is not them? It is scary how many people's businesses here that the most important person to the business is not them. That it's a salesperson, that it's a technical lead co-founder, it's somebody else. That is scary. And so there's a lot of things we don't control when we build our businesses. The market, listen, I'm a boy that's born in Soviet Russia. You start thinking about markets where you have to be nice with the families that run the country, fuck. Right? There's a lot of things we don't talk about that make it scary, which is why I don't like the current state of entrepreneurship in the world, because it seems very party and popular and cool, and it is literally everything but. I started my daily vlog. Yes, I like attention and I want selfies, but much more because I want people to see how hard it really is, how long every day is if you really want to be successful. And so I'm scared of everything, which actually ironically means I'm scared of nothing.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I got what you mean.
Got it? I know it's a funny little statement, but by accepting fear of everything, it kind of makes me numb and makes me not fear of anything.
Anything, yeah.
What is your advice for young entrepreneurs in college that are trying to start businesses and run them themselves?
Quit college.
Quit college.
I'm probably, if you're actually an entrepreneur, yes. Because I promise you, college is doing you zero for entrepreneurship. You cannot teach entrepreneurship in a college environment because it is an unbelievable reality of like, you have to navigate it to know what to do. Are you collecting debt?
No.
Okay, good. Well then you just have to decide, you know, look, what I would tell you to do is, you know what I would tell you to do? If you were my brother, if you were AJ, I would say, you've got to make a decision. Either you realize that these are the last couple years that you can really, really, really enjoy and not do shit and enjoy them, or you could put all your energy into your business and let your grades go to shit and either get kicked out or let them push you through the system. If you know, you have to also understand, my definition of an entrepreneur is a little bit different than I think a lot of people's. My definition of an entrepreneur is you can't breathe other than when you're running your business.
Hello.
Hello.
It's me again, Evram. I would like to thank you so much. First of all, I've been watching your talks, your videos a lot in the morning because my mom never supported me, and I had to hear and watch somebody that will give me this push. And thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
I will tell you, and I apologize for cutting you off. I was so supported by my mom to be an entrepreneur, and I want to remind people, and this is a great crowd to understand me. I was an immigrant. If you're an immigrant or you come from immigrant parents, education is the way out. Every Russian, Jewish boy and girl that came from the Soviet Union with my parents was getting straight A's on their way to Harvard. I was getting straight F's. So for my mom to have the self-esteem to not care what the other parents thought, to let me do my thing, was such a gift that I now produce content on a daily basis because I feel guilty that I had it so good and I want to provide that for you guys. That is why I do it. And so I think the biggest thing that you need to understand is the best product will always win if people know about it, right? And so I think the thing that I spend a lot of time on is I'm a marketer. I like to market. I understand marketing. I'm a business builder. I've built businesses. I think there's an incredible, interesting kind of graph between the quality of your product and how many people know about it. So for example, if you're a great marketer and you listen to everything that I say and you get a lot of attention and your business isn't working, a lot of times it happens to do with your product sucking. You know, like we don't spend enough time talking about the product or service you're selling, you know? So please, if you're sitting in the audience and you're looking for the magic pill, or if you think that you're gonna be able to siphon some information that's gonna allow you to play in the edges of the arbitrage of opportunity, please make sure you're looking at your product and service to make sure it delivers. Because if you follow my blueprint, if you get results from my ideas that you then become an executor of, if your product sucks, all that I'm gonna do is expose your product faster and you're gonna go out of business faster. So please start there. But after that, please understand the following. This is a golden era of marketing for one simple reason. The places where our attention and our consumers' attention are now driven by marketplace bidding dynamics, not by writing an upfront check to get the ads. Please understand this. Please understand that the biggest difference for us as communicators is we don't need millions of dollars to do television and print and outdoor and direct mail to hit mass. We are trading on marketplaces, Google, Facebook, Snapchat. These are biddable marketplaces. The reason this is the best time is because those marketplaces are underpriced. Those marketplaces are underpriced right now because the biggest companies in the world are not spending enough money on them. You have to understand, when there's a come to Jesus moment and the biggest brands in the world properly spend in everything that I talk about, everything I talk about becomes null and void. We are ridiculously lucky because we get to navigate through this time. For anybody over 30, and especially if you're over 40, you really recognize that, because for over 40 crowd in here, we lived pre-internet in a lot of ways. The scale is remarkable. The impact is high. The upside's enormous. And to be very honest, I think most of us are just taking it for granted. I don't think we understand the impact of how much the opportunity is real. And for me, it becomes disproportionately compounded because you're actually at this conference. You're actually part of a very small, interesting group for me, which is I know how big the opportunity is. I know that 99% of people have no idea it's happening. You do. So you're part of 1% of the whole thing that understands it's happening. Now it's yours to lose. I would argue that if you are not able to achieve what you want to achieve in life and you're at this conference during this time, then you really misexecuted. Then you really got into the things that I worry about when I put out content, which is you worry way too much about stuff that does not matter. That you're worried way too much about other people's opinions, which is the biggest reason you don't take chances, because you worry about how people judge your failures. Then you're doing a lot of other things that are leading to huge levels of missed shots and missed opportunities. And so that's why I speak so much about being insular, having the right intent, because literally fundamentally, if you synthesize everything I've just said, non-action is the fundamental reason that most of you will fail. At this point, being in this room, at this conference, during this time, and understanding quite a bit of what's actually happening. Non-action, which if you take all the way to the seed of a human being, is insecurity, which is probably the biggest reason that I create content, because I hope that you use me as your shield to do shit. Period. Most entrepreneurs in the US, which is oftentimes, not always, because of cultural differences, but oftentimes, you get to see a preview of what's happening before it happened. When I think about my friends that have built successful businesses in Southeast Asia by simply paying attention of what's happening in America and then replicating some version of it in the market, it is literally the dream come true. You know, American entrepreneurs got mad at those brothers in Germany, right? Who would rip off the ideas and build a business. I always was so upset about that. I mean, I think Facebook has proven that there's no ripping off if it's a feature. And I think I would also argue that ripping off by looking at a different business in a different market and then interpreting it into your market is far from ripping off. I think it's called smart. So I would highly recommend, I don't know if it's pride, which I think holds back a lot of people, but please take advantage. For the disadvantages one could think they have, there's only 5 million here. If you want to do it in Indonesia, there's a lot of people, but there's so many microclimates, so that's, you know, so many different segmentations, mainland China. Whatever you would deem a disadvantage, please understand you have the greatest advantage, which is 90% of things are human, not cultural. 90% of things are human, not cultural. If you're capable at understanding the culture of your consumer and layer the cultural context on top of the human thing that is happening in America, you are halfway home. An unbelievable advantage to be an entrepreneur in this region and watch things play out. By the way, for free, no report needed, no hiring Boston Consulting or Bain & McKinsey, by reading and watching videos and downloading apps. Something that I don't believe most people in this conference are taking full advantage of or respecting enough of how big of an advantage that is. And to me, very honestly, I'm quite selfish when I speak. I dream in 3 years from now, you email me, nothing would make me happier than getting an email from somebody here who said they had a $50 million exit because, you know, they just looked at what was working in America and they built the replica-ish of it here. Please do that. Please understand how big of a deal that is. And I would argue it is your singular biggest advantage in this market to be able to be shown what will work and then allow you to interpret it, oftentimes with very little change in the model. Cool? Cool. So those are some of the top of the funnel things that are really on my mind. I continue to execute. I continue to do. I'm very fascinated by how much time people spend dwelling and debating. I think we glorify strategy and we underestimate execution. I feel like if you look historically and rewind the biggest successes, the strategy came from the execution, and you did some Monday morning quarterback. I'm a real genius in hindsight because I can manipulate how I got there after the fact. I'm gonna talk about so many things in different ways than the intent that was at first, because you don't even realize that your strategy came from it, because when you're doing, the strategy is happening in real time, you almost forget why you were doing it in the first place. And so I promise you, indecisiveness and debate and pontificating and ultimately ego is stopping so many people from being successful.
Hi Gary, my name is Terrence, and I'm 20 this year. So just one question for you. I've been listening to you for about a year now, and I'm just trying to figure out, as a 20-year-old without any experience in my parents' business, I've wanted to build a video, a vlog, an audio podcast, but I don't have the experience to actually do it. So which one should I focus on? Building up the experience in the business, or should I go direct to help market the
Well, listen,
company?
if you started a podcast and a video blog about being experienced in the craft, that would be bad, faking it.
Yeah.
But if your podcast was about the experience of learning the craft, you'd probably have a lot of 20-year-olds following you.
Okay.
So I don't think it's about getting the experience. When I talk about I built a business for 15 years before I came out, right? I say that because that's what happened. But I have a funny feeling if the internet was around when I was a kid like this, I might have started documenting my journey right away. I just wouldn't be walking around like I was a business building guy. I would be talking about being a young, ambitious guy who used to sell baseball cards, and now I'm about to do it for wine, and I would take people along with my journey. That's my biggest problem with people that don't have experience. They're lying. They're lying that they're business experts, or my favorite, you're a 20-year-old life coach. Because you've lived life. Yeah. So to me, I think you can start the podcast and the video blog. I mean, I wish I did that, because I probably cried 50 times in the first 10 years that I worked with my dad, because they were very painful fights. And that would have been incredible content that I wish you guys could watch if you're in a family business, because it turned out okay, and it would have been really cool to see how that happened and why, and how I was able to give more than I took, and how I loved my dad more than the money, and how I thought about what I could do in my 30s and 40s, and it's okay to lose in my 20s. But I wouldn't have walked around and said I was a marketing genius because I thought I was gonna be.